Hey everyone. Okay, so before getting into the episode itself, we do got to talk about the recent news about the anime, which is that supposedly Toei is not doing any more filler after Wano. They're plowing straight ahead into adapting the manga fully from here on out. And honestly, I really don't know how to feel about this one. Because, well, don't get me wrong, I have had a hit and miss experience with the One Piece filler in the past. I do still understand that filler does still kind of serve the purpose of making sure they don't catch that the anime doesn't catch up to the manga. And even though there is at present a fair amount of space between the manga and the anime in terms of content, I've also found that if not carefully done, they if not carefully done in how they adapt the anime going forward, if they're doing this, that could very well bite them in the ass, and they'll find themselves like without content to adapt. Now that that whole mentality of not doing any more filler might change very quickly if they're choosing to go this route. But by that same token, the fact that Toei is choosing to go down this road at all begs the question of just how much, just begs the question of why. Like, how much quicker of the in the pace is the manga going to pick up once we make it out of Egghead? Because if that's the case, that the manga is gonna like pick up at a rapid pace in terms of pacing, then that would make this decision, then that would kind of, that would make this decision a little more understandable, and it almost makes me wonder if something was going on internally at Toei, like something Oda or Shonen Jump has shared with them about the current state of the story and where it's headed, has given them this confidence in order to move ahead with this idea. So maybe because they've been told something to that effect, that they have been given the green light to just keep going without stopping. So yeah, that's the only way I can rationalize it, honestly. But I don't know. One final thing as well is that despite saying that they're not going to do filler, I wonder if that also applies to the recap episodes, or if that's still going to be like their way of spacing things out going forward if they need to. Like that I guess that and honestly, recap episodes would probably like more efficient and probably more of a better way to pace out the anime, rather than just doing full on, like dedicating so much to pretty much to filler, I guess. But like overall, like I'm glad they're not. Overall, I think I am glad they're not gonna do as much, like all that, like they're not doing filler anymore. But at the same time, it's like it just begs the question of how they're going to make this work ultimately. I think is where my big question mark lies on this. But okay. With that said, though, let's talk about the episode itself, and I'll start by ripping the Band-Aid off first. That bass scene. All I'm gonna say is that Toei did feed us really well in that one, and they definitely fed a certain skeleton and cook really well, it seems as well. But okay, in like just the way they did that whole scene, it was like, yeah, it's good. But okay, in all seriousness, this is yet another chapter covering more of the aftermath of the battle, and the episode starts off really strong with the Elder Stars, and with a surprising turn, realizing that, yeah, Nika's return is going to be really difficult to cover up. They can't just like manipulate the news anymore as much as they would like, at least not fully, which is even more so compounded by the problem that by the problem of Momonosuke's decision to hold off on opening the border. So I like how we are kind of finally getting to see some real cracks form in the government's traditional way of doing things, even if ultimately it may make them even more dangerous than they've ever been before. And trust me, as a manga reader, that's not an exaggeration either. Like the government beyond this point kind of takes central stage, and they become a real fucking threat. Of course, beyond that, we may also get we also get a great scene between Hawkins and Drake, where Hawkins, in his dying breath, reveals it all. And I'm not gonna lie, compared to Apu, who I just saw as a piece of shit, ultimately piece of shit, period, I do like how within Hawkins' final moments, we really get to see just what he had been feeling this entire time. That the moment he met Kaido all the way up to now, he's felt powerless, weak, and nothing he could have done was going to change, like, the future he saw. And so ultimately, he turned to the only path he could think of, which was to ally himself with Kaido. At least that's that's what he thought was basically the only way he could change the future. But ultimately never realizing the cruel irony that in that singular decision, that ultimately that only allying himself with Kaido is what led him down the path towards his death. So again, there's definitely a real irony there, honestly. And yeah, and real irony, and just a tragedy to his character, honestly, in a way. Like, you rack your brain so much about how to prevent events from happening, and ultimately it just leads you down the path of just kind of the events happening anyway. And yeah, on a lighter note, I like how a large chunk of this episode is just Momonosuke coming to terms with the fact that he's an adult now, and how there are some things that haven't changed, like how Hiyori just continuously, even now, still kicks him in the head and whatnot, does the whole flying kick shit to him. But even then, but in equal measure, he realizes that there are equal measure things that come now with him being an adult that he can't get away with. Like, again, with the whole, like, trying to get the whole sneaky feel up of Nami and whatnot. Like, you can do that as a kid, but as an adult, no, that shit is just not gonna fly. But okay, I gotta talk about the ending of this episode, because for the most part, this episode was great, but how Toei ended this episode had me cursing up a storm by the time it was over. And I get it. They want to save the big reveal of what's going to happen next for its own episode, but damn, does it still hurt having to wait another week. Like, we were just about to get the reveal of who's going to be the new Yonko, and it just we don't get him. We're not going to get him until next week. Like that. I get it, keep us in suspense, but god damn, did that hurt. Although, I guess the other thing to talk about is that next week's episode is also going to mark our first full-on introduction to Ryokugyu. And without giving too much away until next week, let's just say I'm rather mixed on the direction Oda went with the character design of Ryokugyu, and how it feels like such a downgrade compared to his silhouette appearance. Like, his silhouette appearance had much more of a threatening presence to him compared to the one we're gonna get. The only reason I can guess as to why Oda went the direction he did with Ryukugyu's character design is because it was intentionally done to draw a familial connection to another Marine. But again, I'll get into that next week. Moving on from that, we do get a very interesting montage of events starting in the same classroom, where we saw those kids being indoctrinated with Orochi's lies about the Kozuki, and how they're now being told the truth about Odin and his legacy. And I like how it is portrayed in that sort of way, where even though Orochi is portrayed as the villain and Odin the hero, in the story the teacher's telling, the episode also makes a special note of the fact that he's telling Odin's whole story to the kids. He's telling them the story of what Odin was really like, even the things that were cause of great embarrassment for his father. And again, it's a small detail, I know, but it's really an important one to show that, yeah, they are. Wano is making steps in order to telling the full truth of its history, not just telling some truths and leaving others out. And it's a good way to kind of, in order to ease the citizens in to when it's time to reveal just what the full truth of what Wano is hiding really is. With that said, though, there is one little moment that definitely sticks out a lot more now, upon revisiting this stuff in the anime, which is Marco saying he survived again, and just lamenting on it. Like, it's one of those little details that makes me think most, if not all, of the Whitebeard pirates are likely dead. And I know at the time Oda never really said outright they had died after the battle with Blackbeard, and even now he hasn't really confirmed where they are or what's going on with the Whitebeard pirates. But the kind of moves Blackbeard is making in the manga right now, it's starting to feel just more and more like that is the case. There's still a small chance they're just hiding in wait for the right time to act, but again, how Marco kind of trails on that one line really has me wondering, are they actually dead or are they alive? It's kind of confusing in that regard. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll, be sure notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share it around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.